Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over an upcoming winter storm which is going to be moving throughout parts of the Central Plains into the Ohio and Tennessee valleys and then into parts of the Mid-Atlantic and parts of the Northeast. We're going to be discussing where the storm will track, how much snowfall you could be seeing, how much ice you could be seeing, and also when this storm will be occurring. This is mainly going to be a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday event, and then we'll reload for our next system from Friday through Sunday. So we're back to back with these storm systems, and it's definitely an active and cold pattern. So let's get right into it here, and let's start off with your current National Weather Service page. We have some winter storm, or we have some wind chill advisories in that light blue for parts of the northern plains from the UP of Michigan all the way up through Montana, as well as some wind chill warnings in effect for parts of northern Montana, North Dakota, and northern Minnesota there. We also have some winter weather advisories back from northern Texas up through eastern Oklahoma, northwestern Arkansas, and southern Missouri, as well as a bigger area of winter storm watches, mainly for the threat of heavy ice accumulation from West Virginia all the way down to Arkansas, and especially the southern end of this winter storm watch area, mainly for this area right here, is where the biggest ice threat is going to be, and we're going to be discussing that a lot more later on in the video. We have some winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings up for the Northeast as well. Some of those areas getting quick 6+ inches of snowfall, so we do have some winter storm warnings actually up for parts of Massachusetts. And then we also have some more scattered winter weather advisories back through the Central Rockies, and some winter storm watches for an event that I'll likely make a snowfall forecast on my community post tab on YouTube, and I'll have that snowfall forecast out either by tomorrow or by later today or by tomorrow. Winter storm watches are up for Oregon, and some of those lower elevations are actually going to get a bit of snowfall from that for once. They've really had not a lot of snow over the past couple of years, and now it looks like this could be your chance at getting some of that snow. Your records yesterday for the continental United States, your highest reports in terms of temperatures were both near Miles City, Florida, both at 90 degrees Fahrenheit. One was 7 miles northeast of Miles City, and one was 17 miles east of Miles City. So both of them in the Everglades, where they did get very, very warm yesterday. Felt like summer over a lot of those areas, and the complete opposite as you get up through northeastern Minnesota and some of the more wooded areas. They actually got down to negative 43 degrees in Cotton, Minnesota. That's where that blue dot is up in Minnesota. So in northeastern Minnesota, they got very, very cold, and especially the entire area of the northern plains was very, very cold yesterday morning. And the highest report of rainfall or precipitation was 1.5 miles east of Hamilton, Missouri. They got 4 inches of rainfall or measurable precipitation. And then the snowfall report, the highest snowfall report, was 7 miles east of Cobalt, Idaho, where they got 11 inches of snowfall yesterday up in the northern Rockies. So let's start talking about this system and timing it out for you guys on the European model. And this is the high resolution European model, so we'll be able to get a little bit more detailed. This would be by later tomorrow, and we're dealing with that ice setting up for parts of Missouri, Arkansas, and even Oklahoma and Kansas there, with some snow further to the north. We have a very, very brutal area of cold air that's further to the north, and it's far enough to the north that it's not going to suppress this too far to the south. So still, a lot of these areas are going to be dealing with some snowfall, but it shouldn't allow most of these areas to also get into the winter precipitation. So it's right in that perfect prime zone. If you live anywhere within pretty much this area, this is the type of pattern that you want to be in, because this brings you the most snowfall when you have just enough cold air but not too much cold air that it'll suppress these systems to the south. We have that ice already setting up. We have a very, very large warm layer a few thousand feet up in the atmosphere over the Tennessee Valley, so we're gonna see some warm air falling as rain, and that's gonna end up freezing upon contact. If you live anywhere around the Tennessee Valley, around the Ozarks, that's where you're gonna be dealing with the heaviest ice accretion. So let's time this out for you guys. This would be by, again, later on Wednesday. The snow and the ice is starting to fill in on the map. we do have more of that snow and ice still moving through by Wednesday later in the evening. So this would be by right around 3 p.m. On Wednesday Central Time. This would be by 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We're dealing with snow back through West Virginia, Western Virginia, and all the way east to about Missouri, or all the way west to about Missouri and Illinois there. And then we're dealing with a band of ice that's just going to set up over this area and really not budge for quite a while. That moves from central Kentucky down through southeastern Missouri and northern Arkansas, where you're dealing with more of that ice. I do have a sneaky suspicion that this will shift a little bit further to the north. We've seen this a lot this winter, where in the past event where we saw with Winter Storm Orlena, it shifted north within the past 24 to 48 hours of that event. Just a couple days ago with that previous snowstorm that gave 6 inches to parts of the Northeast and the Ohio Valley, they also, the models really shifted overnight further to the north. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a slight shift to the north. Nothing too drastic, but I would definitely watch out. I don't think this will shift any further to the south, so the only other way this will really shift would be to the north, or it would shift a little bit weaker with the system. So we'll have to see how this plays out. There is still a lot of time for the models to change, especially with how inconsistent they've been this year. As we move through Thursday morning, still snowing over some of those areas in the lower Ohio Valley. You get into Kentucky, Missouri, and northern Arkansas. That area of ice really hasn't moved an inch, pretty much. It really hasn't moved at all. We're dealing with a lot of that ice coming down at a fairly steady rate, so you will start to get that to add up a little bit. Some models showing up to an inch of ice. That is a possibility. I don't think it'll be that much. Maybe up to half an inch of ice in some of those areas. Either way, that is a lot of ice, and you really don't want to be on the roadways while that's happening. You really want to wait for all the crews to kind of handle that, put some rocks out on the roads, and really treat the roads before you get out on the roadways, because there will be some major travel issues if you are going to be traveling on Wednesday night or into Thursday, and even that might last into Friday. We're dealing with that snow now filling up through the mid-Atlantic from Pennsylvania and New Jersey southward into Virginia, West Virginia, and Kentucky by this point, and that ice is still setting up, and you can see that area of ice just sits there, doesn't really move, and just sets up over that same area. We're dealing with that snow continuing to move further to the north and to the east. We now have a line of snow from northern Kentucky through into southern Indiana and back into parts of the Delmarva there and the Mid-Atlantic, where you're dealing with more of that snow moving through. And that's going to continue just set up over that same area. So this storm really isn't going to move. This is by Thursday late in the morning into the early afternoon, and we're still dealing with those same areas, dealing with snow and ice over some of those areas. Kentucky still dealing with that heavy ice and moderate snow still falling for parts of the mid-Atlantic there. And then by Thursday night, it's starting to wrap up on that western end of the system. We're actually seeing our next system on the left-hand side of your screen, but it's starting to wrap up now. Parts of Missouri, Arkansas, southern Illinois, southern Indiana are done with the winter precipitation. It's still icing and snowing over parts of West Virginia and Kentucky, unfortunately, and this is where you might get into some of those real concerns. If you just stick over that same area with that ice for 24 plus hours, that's where you get those major ice accumulations, and that's where you can get some real issues on the roadways. We might see another area of ice set up on the other side of the Appalachians over parts of Virginia, and we'll have to see exactly where in Virginia that sets up, but it does look like there will be another area of ice there. You might see a little bit of a wedge of warm air through the Appalachians into southern West Virginia, where you might get a little bit of rain to switch over. But for the rest of West Virginia and into the mid-Atlantic, you're still dealing with some snow by this point. And then here would be by Thursday night into Friday morning. We're still dealing with heavier snowfall and heavy ice accumulation back through into Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and we're still dealing with that snow moving throughout those areas. This would be by Friday morning and into Friday later in the morning. We're still dealing with more of that snow back through into the mid-Atlantic. It really hasn't moved. They've been snowing for closer to 36 hours, maybe even close to 40 plus hours by this point, according to this model, and it does look like it wraps up, the low pressure starts to move offshore, and that's when you start to get this to wrap up. But we will be dealing with potentially some more reinforcing snow as you get a kind of a wave and kind of an arm of moisture to kind of move through into the Great Lakes and the Northeast. So watch out for another chance of some 1 or 2 inch snow accumulations on the back end of the system. But it really does wrap up as we get to Friday. Past about lunchtime, it's pretty much all said and done with a few scattered rain or snow showers still in the area. So this would be what the European model, which we just looked at, is showing in terms of snow totals. We're dealing with anywhere in the grays under an inch to 2 inches, 2 to about 6 inches of snowfall in the blues, 6 to 10 inches in the purples, 10 plus inches in the pinks. So we do have a band where you're dealing with that heavier snow back through central Virginia. Exactly where that rain snow line sets up again is going to be one of the bigger factors, like it is in mini storms. If that rain snow band is a little bit further to the north, then areas like Washington, D.C., southern Maryland would be in that 10 plus inch band. If this is a little bit colder, then it would be over southern Virginia that gets into that heavier snow band. Right now, most of the models have this area under that heavy snow band, although we have seen the models shift quite drastically overnight with some of these. So I would continue paying attention to the models, even though we are close to this event. The surrounding areas, you do see a little finger of 6 plus inches back through Kentucky and West Virginia, so you might want to watch out. There could be some heavy accumulations as we get north of that ice area. And then, of course, these areas that are in gray, even though they're in the gray, they're not seeing a lot of snow, you are still dealing with some heavy ice accumulation, so that will kind of lower your snow totals, but it can cause a lot more issues than snow. Ice is probably a lot more dangerous, and actually it is a lot more dangerous than if you got a lot of snow. So here's what the ice accumulation on the European model is, and we're looking at a lot of these areas getting over half an inch. According to the European model, I think this is a little bit overdone. I would cut these amounts in half, but even if you were to cut these amounts in half, some of these areas are still getting over half an inch of ice. So we really have to watch out where the heaviest bands of ice precipitation does set up. And then again, you see that other area on the other side of the Appalachians where you get into the maybe half inch plus, according to this model. If you were to cut that in half, maybe closer to 3/10 of an inch of ice. So still a lot of ice and still a lot of travel issues. So here's what the National Weather Service is showing, and I think they're kind of latching onto the idea that we might see a shift further to the north. You can tell that their southern end of this is also further to the south. This does include the system that's going on right now, but the northern edge of this is also a little bit further to the north. So they're kind of latching onto the idea that this is going to be a little bit further north than what some of the models are showing right now. Of course, their forecast is going to change as the models change as well. So we'll have to continue watching them, and I'll have updates on the storm. Probably another update out tomorrow where I'll actually have my snowfall forecast out for this storm, and most likely my ice accumulation forecast. Here's the ice accumulation forecast from the National Weather Service. They're showing over a quarter of an inch for a lot of these areas from Kentucky back through Arkansas. I think this is a quite sensible ice accumulation forecast as of right now. We don't know where the heaviest band is setting up just yet, so we don't want to really be putting out half-inch plus amounts just because, of course, if that band shifts a little bit north or south, then that half-inch band will also shift a little bit north or south. Here's what the GFS is showing. It is also a little bit further to the north with that heaviest snow, and it puts it up through northern Virginia, Maryland, West Virginia, and in that area generally. Here's what the Icon model is showing, the German model. It's also shifting a little bit further north on every single run. Yesterday, it was suppressed to the south. Now it's starting to shift a little bit further to the north, so you see those 2 to 4 plus inch areas all the way through the mid-Atlantic and even back through into parts of Maryland, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, getting into the 6 plus inch area. Now here's what the NAM 3CAM model is showing, and they're showing a general 2 to 4 inch area. This does not complete the entire system, so there is still snow to go that's going to be forecast for these areas. So this does not go through the entire storm. It only goes through Thursday night, and as we know, the storm does not end until about Friday at lunchtime. And here to be the RGEM model, and we're looking at right around 2 to 4 inches for a lot of areas, 4 to 6 and maybe even more inches of snowfall back through into parts of Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware for a lot of those areas. And here would be what the Weather Prediction Center on their 75th percentile, which I think is a lot more accurate than their 50th percentile. Usually their 50th percentile is a lot lower than what actually happens, so I usually use their 75th percentile as more of an accurate gauge of what they're thinking. Here's their forecast. They're showing 2 plus inches for a lot of these areas from now now all the way until Friday morning, and that includes much of Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, all the way into parts of New Jersey and Long Island. And then you see that 4-inch area plus that's back through into the mid-Atlantic area, and then you even see that 6+ inch area that's from Northern Virginia up through Maryland, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, with a couple pockets that even see closer to 8 or more inches of snowfall according to their 75th percentile map. And here would be the 75th percentile for ice, which I also think is a lot more accurate than their 50th percentile. Usually their 50th percentile is a lot lower than what actually happens. They're looking at a wide area getting over a 1/4 of an inch in that dark green area, and even a little blue area, and actually quite wide blue area for anywhere from Kentucky back through northeastern Arkansas, and they're looking at over 1/2 inch of ice in that area. We'll have to see how the models shift overnight, and I'll definitely keep you updated if you live in that area, because there could be some major issues in terms of the ice. And also, here are your chances of seeing 2 to 3 inches or more of snowfall. The storm hasn't ended just yet, so this would be from Friday morning until Saturday morning. They still do have a little area back through New Jersey, New York, and into Massachusetts, where you might still clip the end of the system and you might still get a couple of inches of snowfall, although they are showing a quite low chance of you seeing that 2 to 3 inches or more of snowfall. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.